Good morning, all of you.
Good morning, ma'am. Good
Good
afternoon, ma'am.
afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon. Oh, it's 12 o'clock. It's quite cloudy in Bhubaneswar. So we are much relieved from the heat and the humidity. So I realized, yeah, we can't see solar eclipse. I don't think in Bhubaneswar. He has been QS ranking. Uh, yeah, am I audible now?
Your voice is breaking, ma'am.
Can you hear me? It's breaking.
Now it's okay.
Okay. Okay, so am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so I think all of you know this. The QS ranking that SOA has got. So we are almost like competing with the IITs, and all of you should be proud of being a student here in the university. Okay, so where is Deep today? Deep isn't there in the class? Ah, yes, Deep. Okay, so uh, please remind me where were we? Okay, great. So Deep is has taken charge like the CR of the class. Very good, Deep. Okay, now we were talking about, just to recapitulate what we have already done. We're talking about three methodologies that we can adapt, we can apply for audience analysis. One is direct observation. Nothing works best than a first-hand knowledge, which can be done through audience analysis, but it's not always possible to uh, directly observe your audience, talk to them at leisure, then find out about them. It is kind of impossible until and unless it's a group like you and me. since you have been together for quite long, I mean, for a lot of time, it is possible. But when the speech has to be done uh, with a group of people who are not known to each other, then observation cannot be the right option. Sometimes we can also go in for inference, where audience analysis is just a mere is a logical extension of your observations. You observe the audience and then you make your own conclusions. You draw your own conclusions. So inference is when you make a reasoned, tentative conclusion or logical judgment on the basis of the available evidence. So when you're making a judgment, when you're extending your observation to uh, infer, to get a logical conclusion out of your observation, that's called inference. So when I observe the group of audience that I have in front of me, I logically make some conclusions about each, sometimes they are conspicuous, about their age or also their ethnicity, and somewhat about their
Ma'am, your voice is
status.
breaking.
Not audible?
Ma'am, your voice is breaking.
Okay. Uh, am I audible now,
Yes,
Austin? It is breaking, Ashutosh, or am I clear?
ma'am, you are clear.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, right. So, uh, whenever you are, when you look at your audience, no, you can definitely make some kind of a conclusion from your observations. At least you can make out part of the demographic characteristics of your audience by looking at them, by observing them, their gender, their age group, sometimes their socio-economic status. We may not know about their education quite right, but at least we try to find out. Uh, but through inference, we may not be able to find out about their psychology, the psychological belief and attitude. We may not know, but the other demographic criteria can be inferred by observation. So inference is basically a logical conclusion from your observation. So what you observe, you make a logical conclusion out of that. That is called inference. So we have already done the two methodologies. One is directly observing and talking to your audience, having conversations, finding out about them, and that's nothing surpasses that because you get a first-hand experience of that of your audience. But we can some at times when we don't have time to talk or converse, then we can probably extend our observation to make our own tentative, reasoned conclusions. If you find all of them, wearing sari, all your audience members, then we know that probably uh, they are Indian women, and maybe they are traditional Indian women. So these are some of the tentative tentative conclusion that we draw from our observations. Okay, that is inference. Now the third methodology is data sampling. Uh, okay, Now, when it is literally impossible to talk or have conversation with an audience who is complete stranger, and you don't have enough time, how do you find out about them? How do you um, get to know about them? And that can be done through making surveys or collecting data. So, the third methodology that we will be talking about is data sampling. Now, audience analysis by data sampling requires you to survey your audience before you give your speech. How do you do the survey? So, you need to know the basics of doing a survey before you actually collect and interpret your data. So, how do you do a survey? How do you collect data? Because after you do a survey and collect data from your audience, you only then you'll be in a position to interpret your data. So, what is the technique to do a survey? Tell me, what is the way you do a survey and collect data from your audience? How do you do that? How do you do that? Okay, what is that called? Uh, yes. Uh, what are those survey forms called? What is the uh, exact terminology for that? What do you write in that Google form?
Data.
You don't write the data. You collect the data from your audience. And how do you collect the data? How do you do that? How do you collect the data? What is the exact method? What do you write in that Google form? If you're doing a survey online also, what do you write in that form?
Our experience.
No, 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 no. You are collecting data, no?
We provide a certain specification that they have to fill, like
What is
name.
that? Yes. What is that called? No, no. Census is, yeah, the demography taken by the government every 10 years to know the population. That is census, but we are not doing a census. We are just trying to do a survey about our audience. So, how do we prepare that Google form? Asutosh, you are close. You're close. Tell me, what are those specification called? What is the name? There is a certain name for that. What is that called? Tell me. Hmm.
Are you talking about focus groups?
It may not be focus groups all the time. I just want to know what is the exact term or terminology we use for um, the data that you put in the Google form. When you send it for collecting information from your audience, you must write certain things in it, no? You must write certain things to produce so that you can advance that to produce the required data from the audience. What is that called?
Taking samples.
Okay. Hmm. Hmm. What is that called?
Submissions.
Mm, no, no, no. Yes, Raghav Ranjan, we want information from our audience. What is that? You have to design certain questions, isn't it? Do you design questions?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. You have to design a set of questions which you have to which you advance to your group or to your audience members, or like Subrantu say, if it's a focus group, okay, which you advance to get get back certain information. Now, what is the set of questions called? Survey questions called. What is that set of survey questions called?
I make it queries.
Closer, yes. There is a specific term for it. What is that term? Because I'll ask you to design one. So you must know the term. You're closer, yes. Brainstorm. Why, Gurman, you're Googling or what? You're not responding?
No, I was just thinking because all the answers everyone have given and you said that it was close. I was
It
thinking.
is. Just have to be a little. You have to just hit the bullseyes. It's closer, but yeah. You have to design a set of questions so that you get your required information from your audience. That is the purpose, because you're going to analyze the information and then find out about.
Interview?
Interview is not always possible, no, Kamru. You don't go and interview each of the members, so you advance some kind of a survey question. So my question is, what is the terminology for that? There is a specific term used for survey questions. It is a series of questions
Well, opinion.
which you, yes. Am I audible to you?
Questionnaire?
Correct. Who said that?
It's me.
Oh, yes. It's called questionnaire. Correct. So a series of questions that you design for your audience is called a questionnaire. It's specifically used for surveys. So survey questions are questionnaires with a double N, AIRE, questionnaires. So never articulate it as questionnaire. It's not questionnaire, it's questionnaire. Now I'm being a little rigid about articulation because yes, because English is such a damn language. It's such a irrational language that if you tend to pronounce or articulate one word in different ways, then there is a problem of intelligibility, understanding. So your audience might not understand, and that is why it is required that we follow certain standard uh, rules for articulating English, the words or sentences in English, because there will be a problem in understanding. Yeah, Nishikant, you raised a hand. Why? You want to ask something? Okay, maybe by mistake. Mm, so that is the problem. So we have to be a little. We have to articulate in a very standardized way, or else we have problems understanding. So it's questionnaire and not questionnaire. I'm not making any judgments um, on delivery, but it is important to follow some standard procedures for articulating this language. I think most of you, I've heard almost every one of you in the class, in your class. So I don't think you have a problem in articulation of the language. All of you are good enough. Uh, So, questionnaire. That's an important term that you have to remember. So, whenever it is a survey, there are two ways of doing a survey. Could be more, but we are concerned with only one. Not even the interview procedure, like Kamrup said. It is not possible, Kamrup, to interview everyone. So, in an audience analysis for speech making, the only survey option left with us is questionnaire, is advancing questionnaire to our audience. Now, questionnaire is a set of questions that you have to design so that you get the required information. And after you collect all your data, you sit back to interpret your data. You try to find out what some demographic information about your audience. You also interpret the psychological aspect of your audience. So, uh, once you design these questions, you advance these questions, you go on to collect it, and then sit down to interpret the data. And in interpretation, you get to know about your audience. That is how you analyze your audience. Uh, so that's called basic questionnaire. So one of the types of survey method you should know about is the basic questionnaire. Now, which is a series of questions advanced to produce demographic and attitudinal data from your audience. So you have to really think to decide on these questions. When you're designing these questions, when you're composing these questions, you really have to put in your thinking, because these questions must get the answers for all the demographic and attitudinal data of your audience. That is why you are putting up this questionnaire, survey questionnaire. So it is important to know. Now, the questionnaire should consist of three types of questions: scale type, open ended, and fixed alternative. Now, when I ask you to design a questionnaire, which I will, maybe in the next lab. Deep, what are we doing this lab? In this lab, in the coming lab this week? Okay, then maybe I'll ask you to do this. Those who want to wind it up can do it, but after that, this would be the activity. So when you design a questionnaire must have should not always have the same pattern of questions. What is your gender? What is your age? You're not supposed to do this. Now, what you do is uh, you have to uh, compose three different types of questions, at least three different type of questions. One type of question is scale type question, where you ask your audience to rate on a Likert scale of 1 to 5 or 1 to 10. Now, if it's a 1 to 5 scale, then the last one, either end of the scale will have the extreme rating, like very good or excellent or very bad. After excellent comes good, bad, neutral. So the middle one could be neutral. Towards the right, it's good, very good, and towards the left, bad, very bad, bad. So that's called a scale type question. So you ask your audience a question and ask them to rate it on this scale. That is one type of question. So if you are designing a questionnaire, you must have at least 6 questions in your questionnaire, at least. People have longer questionnaires, but at least, ideally 6, not less, maybe more. So some of the questions must be scale type questions. Now, if you don't understand, please ask me. I'll show you a sample. Maybe next class I'll show you a sample of how a questionnaire is designed. You can also Google it. You're very good at it. So one question is scale type question. where you ask the audience to rate either the product or the topic or anything. So you ask them to rate it. The second is open-ended question. Second type of question is open-ended question, where you leave some space, 3 or 4 lines, uh, with a why or why not. So you give the audience a space to express their views. Say, for example, 4 or 5 lines, in 3 or 4 lines, they express it. Why you like this or why you don't like it, or why you have been doing this or why not. So why not question. Open-ended questions are why or why not questions. And the third type of questionnaire is fixed alternative questions. So you ask them a question and you give them 3 or 4 alternatives for them to tick mark. For example, you belong to the following age group, colon, you give them 4 options: 18 to 25, 26 to 35, 36 to 45, 45 to 60. So they have to tick mark one. Gender, male, female, other. So they'll tick mark. That's called a fixed alternative. So you give them alternative, but the alternative are fixed. They can't write what they want to because there is no such space. Okay. So you give them fixed alternatives for them to tick mark. Am I clear? Are you getting
Yes,
me?
ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is my voice also clear? Uh, is there clarity? Yeah. Because I will ask you to design a questionnaire in the next lab. And I want you to, I think if Anisha can give you the data, the information about who the students are who did not participate in the previous lab activity, just maintain an Excel sheet. Okay, maintain that. Tick mark those who have done and cross it. And I want all of you to do this activity. Designing a questionnaire. At least you get to learn something new. So in the next lab, do we have a class before that? Theory class?
Tomorrow and day after tomorrow.
Oh, that's great. Tomorrow and day after, right, right. But it's again a 3 to 4 class. I hope you don't feel sleepy at that time. Okay. So the questionnaire must have at least 2 questions from each type. At least 2 questions. Scale type, open-ended, and fixed alternative. So fixed alternative is when you give them some alternatives. Direct why and why not questions. So that they get to write something about it. That is why it's called open-ended. And fixed alternative is you give them some alternative which has a fixed answer. They just have to tick mark it. And hmm, 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 hmm. It's like that. Why or why not? Do you like this product? Why or why not? So that's open-ended question. And fixed alternative is you give them certain alternatives. And scale type question is you give them to rate on a scale, on a Likert scale, of 1 to 10 or 1 to 5, or from very bad to excellent, or whatever scale it is. So these are the 3 types of questions that must be reflected in your questionnaire. Okay. Uh, Now coming to the demographic analysis. Now demographic is literally a classification of the characteristics of people. So if someone asks you what is demography, you should be in a position to define that. You should be able to define demography as a classification of the characteristics of the people. Now, for example, the age, gender, education, occupation, language, ethnicity, culture, background knowledge, needs and interests, and or previously held attitudes, beliefs, and values. So all of them come under demography. So if you are asked a question, what is demography, you should be able to tell that these are the human characteristics, the detailed accounts of human population characteristics. That's demography analysis. So we are going to analyze our audience on three parameters, on three category. Demography, we have to find out their age, gender, occupation, language, anything that you feel will help you in your speech making. Number one. So, not understanding the basic demographic characteristics of an audience, or further, that audience's beliefs, values, or attitudes about a given topic makes your presentation goals haphazard. So, if you don't know the basic demographic of your audience, then your presentation goals or your speech goals becomes very haphazard. Like I was giving you the example the other day, that if I go and talk to you, or for example, your group, who are freshers, who are not even sophomores, who are freshers, and I go and make a speech on the importance of investing in pension plans. Yeah, I'm audible now.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. So when you're going to when you're speaking, for example, I speak to a group of freshers, freshmen or sophomores, about the importance of investing in pension plans. I mean, how is it related to them? Why do they even need it? So when I don't understand, when I don't make a survey or don't find out the basic demography of my audience, uh, my entire speech becomes very haphazard, very disorganized. Because I have not done an audience analysis. I don't even know what my audience consists of and what do they need. And that is why we need to do an audience to do a demographic analysis. So I need to find out who my audience is, what is the age, uh, what is the gender, what is the education, everything. So I can prepare and adapt my message accordingly. So, not understanding the basic demographic characteristics of an audience or audience's beliefs and values makes your presentation goals haphazard. So, demographic analysis is seeking to the question, who is it that I'm going to be talking to? So, the primary question is, who is it that I'm going to be talking to? That's the primary concern. That's the question that we need to seek the answer for. So, demographic analysis seeks an answer for the question, who is it that I'm going to be talking to? And this who will define all the demographic characteristics, like their age, like their gender, like the languages they can speak or they know, their education, their socio-economic background, everything counts, right? Now coming to uh, yes, Deep, I'm not able to share screen. There is some with my Wi-Fi is gone now, so I'm taking the class from my other device, and I'm not able to share the screen in this device. So I'll retrieve all this. I'll go back when I get back my Wi-Fi, and I'll share the screen, the previous screens. So till that, please bear with me. I'll definitely share the screen once I'm able to. So the smart speaker or an audience-centric speaker shifts his message to adapt to the audience. So and simply saying that's the purpose of doing demographics, to embed within your message the acceptable parameters of your audience's range of needs. So, why do you need to do a demographic analysis? So that you can embed the acceptable parameters of your audience's needs within your message. And you must know the demography, you must know what kind of language they speak or they understand. If you don't do that, then it'll be difficult. For example, we had a we had a guest lecture long back when I was a student in Hyderabad. So the professor who invited the guest speaker, uh, assumed that maybe most of the students who will attend the seminar, the lecture, will be or speak and understand Telugu. But we were students from other states also. So the speaker started speaking in Telugu, and we didn't understand anything. So at the end, we have to, when they asked, is there any question, I had to tell them that probably you never took count of he was talking about the minority rights. And then I said that probably you never considered the linguistic minorities in your audience, because you assumed that all of them understand Telugu. But we were linguistic minorities in the audience. So it is important that you understand the demography of your audience. Who is it that you're going to talk to? What is the acceptable parameter? So if the majority of your audience are Roman Catholics, and or Roman Catholics from Ireland, if majority of them are Catholics from Ireland, and then you go on to speak about some human rights issues like euthanasia or pro-abortion rights, then that's not an acceptable parameter for them, for these Catholic Irish people. That's not the acceptable parameter. They will not be in a position to accept what you said. That would be blasphemy for them. So it is important to understand what is the acceptable parameter for your audience's range of needs. And that is why we need to do an analysis, a demographic analysis, right? Smart speaker to adapt to the varying range of needs of the audience, so that we can, or the speaker can, embed the acceptable parameters of the audience within his message. That is demographic analysis. Now, coming to psychological analysis. Now, I have a beautiful quotation here. Give me a minute. Let me see if I can share the screen. You need to read this quotation. Just give me a minute. Uh, no, I'll do it in the next class. Maybe I'm not able to do it. There's some issue, but anyways, Muhammad Yunus. Who is Muhammad Yunus? Who is Muhammad Yunus? Who is he? Am I audible?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
sir.
Yes, we
He's an
don't know
entrepreneur.
who was he.
Uh-huh.
He's an entrepreneur, I think.
Okay. Okay. From?
That I don't know. I heard his name in some entrepreneur magazine. That's why I remember.
Okay. Muhammad Yunus is a Nobel laureate from Bangladesh. Thankfully, you didn't tell me the cricketer. So, the cricketer is another Yunus, and this is Muhammad Yunus is a Nobel laureate. So Yunus says, "My greatest challenge has been to change the mindset of people. Mindsets play strange tricks on us. We see things the way our minds have instructed our eyes to see. So when we talked about listening skills, we did try to understand that how listening happens through or occurs through many other organs than ears. So we have the eyes, we have the minds. So mindsets are very challenging, are difficult because our minds instruct our eyes to see. So it is not through eyes that we see, or it is not through ears that we listen. We perceive things, we listen things through our minds, as our minds have instructed our eyes to see. So, psychological analysis, simply defining, is to seek to identify the audience's attitudes, beliefs, and values. So, when you try to identify your audience's attitudes, beliefs, and values, that is known as psychological analysis. Because the other things are done by demography. So, demographic analysis takes care of lot of other criteria. But the psychological aspect is taken care of by psychological analysis. Because your listeners will already hold their own assumptions, their attitudes, their beliefs, and values. Um, so, towards the ideas you will inevitably be presenting. As a result, it is always important to know where your audience stands on the issues you plan to address ahead of time. So, you have to understand what your audience thinks on a particular topic. Like when I said that if they are Irish Catholics, then they will have they will have very conservative views on pro-abortion or euthanasia. So you must understand where your audience stands on the issues you plan to address, and that is done through psychological analysis. So it is seeking to identify the audience's attitudes, beliefs, and values. Well, in basic terms, an attitude is a learned disposition to respond in a consistently favorable or unfavorable manner with respect to a person, an object, an idea, or an event. So, attitudes are not as durable as beliefs and values, but they are a good indicator of how people view the person, objects, ideas, or events that shape their world. Now, we will analyze three factors: the attitude, belief, and value. And you must know the difference between these three terms. So, what do we exactly mean by attitude? How is it different from belief, and how are both of them different from values? So, any idea on this? How is attitude different from value and belief? Anyone? Yes, Ishi, would you like to say? Would you like to respond? Are you not able to hear? So, am I audible to all of you? Okay, Ishi, is he there in the class? Or he's simply uh, physically present, mentally absent? Okay, so who would like to answer this question? What is the difference uh, between these three terms? Attitude, belief, and value. If you do think there's a difference, what is the difference?
Ma'am, attitude is basically what we like and what we don't like for a thing or a person. That shows our attitude.
Hmm.
And values for me is like we decide for ourselves that uh, we think that it is right or wrong or good like that.
Okay. And what is belief?
Belief actually guide belief actually help our values. I mean, they help us to decide judgment decide our judgments.
Hmm. Yes, beliefs help our judgments. So, in a way, they also help us to take a stand when we are taking a stand in attitude. So, beliefs help shape our attitude. Yeah, right. And uh, okay, anyone else would like to try? Asutosh?
Can be falsified, but beliefs and values can't.
Mm, give me an example, Sudransh. Give me an example.
Like, for example, there's a timid, introverted kid who wants to fit in, let's say, in a new school. So he'll try to act tough and outgoing and extroverted with his friends, which is not his real self. So that he's like faking a persona, he's faking an attitude to fit in better, whereas his core beliefs and values still remain the same introverted self.
Yes, yes, yes. Right. Uh, but attitude is not always faking things up. Attitude is like, yeah, the core value still remains the same. You're
No,
right.
ma'am.
In
I said like sometimes you can. It's possible to fake it. Like you can't fake what you believe in. You can fake and you can put up a front. You can put up a fake attitude, but you can't fake your beliefs and values. You can't cheat to yourself.
true. But don't you think that our value and belief also shape our attitude most of the time?
Can we say
Ma'am,
attitude is like the way we think, eats, walk?
Yeah, Shutosh, tell me. I'm listening.
Can we say that attitude is what we think, how we think, and how we um, take the judgment?
Okay, but as Gurman said, attitude is taking a position, taking a stand. And right, Subhranshu, yeah, because sometimes we take a stand if we don't believe in that? I mean, is it possible? Like, I don't know.
If the situation calls for it, I think we can do it.
Yeah, even if core value is not that. Yeah, yeah. Yes, Deep. Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, now the question is what Rancho said. Is it like your core value doesn't allow you to say bad words? Um, would you say bad words? Like he said, yeah, if there are certain situations which demand us of doing something. So now my question is like, if you don't believe in something, if you don't have a core value driving you, would you still do the opposite? That is my question. So, would you speak bad words to him if you internally don't believe in this? That is a question.
And like even if we say bad words afterwards, we are going to feel bad if we don't mean to do it.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. In a sense, you're right. Yes, attitudes are not as durable as beliefs and values. So, at times we do definitely our values and beliefs shape our attitude. But yeah, you're right. Maybe at times we do something uh, which may not be one of our core values, but we do it because maybe the situation compels us. Could be. What? Yeah, yeah. Yes. Hmm. But most of the time, our attitude is also driven by our core values, core beliefs. That is what I think. But yes, maybe at times we are uh, we are provoked to do something very opposite to our beliefs at times. Yeah.
If
So,
I
attitude.
clear, my
Yeah.
answer was in addition to what Gurman said. Uh, I'm not independently saying what I feel. My answer was in addition to whatever he said. So
But Gurman said that attitudes are is taking a position or taking a stand on certain issues.
Yes, that we
And like
like or
when you
dislike
take,
something.
yeah, when you take a stand on certain issues, it is basically um, provoked or basically compelled by our values or our beliefs. That is what I think. Uh, if
I
I'm not,
agree with what he said. My answer was a situational analysis, sort of. I agree with what Gurman
okay.
says, and it's like
Yeah, yeah, even I think so. At times, we do take a stand which could be very opposite to what our core driving principles are, core values are. Yes, I do agree with that at times. But usually, attitudes are temporary, are not permanent. And
Ma'am, excuse me, ma'am.
yes, Anjali.
Ma'am, attitude is something you have some good qualities that everybody wants to like that.
Mm, like, okay, like.
अगर मैम किसी के पास कुछ अच्छी क्वालिटीज़ है और फिर लोग उसको जज करते हैं कि उस पे एटीट्यूड है तो ये वही हुआ ना कि कुछ ऐसा है उसमें जो हम बनना चाहते हो जो हमें अट्रैक्ट किया तो फिर वो एटीट्यूड हो गया
वो एटीट्यूड है या वैल्यू है?
अच्छा होंगे, ये तो कोई गारंटी है नहीं।
That's not attitude. That's value, I guess.
एग्जैक्टली वो क्या है, वो एटीट्यूड है क्या? दैट इज अ क्वेश्चन. सो हाउ डू यू डिस्टिंग्विश बिटवीन एटीट्यूड, बिलीफ इन वैल्यू? I think we'll stop the class here, but please tell me in the next class. Please tell me tomorrow. We'll continue this. I just want to know. This should be very, very clear to all of you. What is the difference between attitude, value, and belief? Okay. So.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay.
So Anjali, Gurman, Ashutosh, Subhanshu, get some examples tomorrow. And Sudhanshu, where were you for so long? Sudhanshu, are you able to hear me? Sudhanshu, I don't know. He's not able to hear, I guess.
He left, I guess.
Okay. So get examples and explain this tomorrow.
Okay, ma'am.
So Deep, remind me tomorrow. We are discussing attitude, belief, and value. Okay. Thank you.
गेला गेला
क्लास हो रही था? अरे क्लास खत्म हो गया?
हाँ खत्म।
बहुत जल्दी आया भाई।
हाँ
हाँ हो गया